Hey, welcome to the Elle Russ Show. My name is Elle Russ, and I am a #1 best-selling author and master coach. My intention is to inspire, educate, and motivate you with weekly content featuring amazing guests and solo episodes. Visit my website, elleruss.com, to learn more about me, my courses, free masterclasses, partner discounts, and much more. Enjoy the show. Hey there. So if this is the first time you're listening to me ever, if someone sent you the link to this podcast, since it's about thyroid stuff, I would love to briefly just tell you about who I am. And so bear with me for those of you who know me and know my work. So I'm a #1 best-selling author, a thyroid expert, and also a master coach when it comes to confidence and life coaching in general. So I wrote the book, The Paleo Thyroid Solution, in 2016. With in-depth commentary from Dr. Forsman, MD, Dr. Gary Forsman. I also have a free thyroid masterclass. It's a 2-hour video with amazing downloads. I'm telling you, it's one of the most valuable things you can do if you are new to understanding thyroid issues. You can go to freethyroidmasterclass.com. You can also go to elleruss.com and click on the free stuff tab. I've got lots of free, amazing things. And for those of you who are listening, if you downloaded already the free paleo guide that I had up there, I revamped it. It now includes information about carnivore diet, keto diet, low histamine, low FODMAP, and paleo. It introduces a couple of meal plans in there and exercise regimens. So it's a good, hefty guide now and doesn't just focus on paleo, but it focuses on some of the other healing diets and gives you a quick snapshot of all of those things involved. So if this is the first time you're ever hearing about hypothyroidism or looking into this, then I would not listen to the rest of this. I would take my free thyroid masterclass first and then come back. Because today I'm going to be talking about some nuances. So I want to preface this conversation because there are nuances when it comes to treating hypothyroidism or any kind of thyroid issue. And I wanted to just lay down some of those thyroid nuances today. Talk about pregnancy, I'll talk about low ferritin, I'll talk about mistakes doctors and patients make, and some adrenal, menopause, perimenopause, and thyroid, etc. So I'm just going to rattle through some of these things. If anything that I say is over your head in any kind of way when it comes to this, then please go take my free thyroid masterclass, read my book, or just go to elleruss.com, click on the media page, and maybe listen to more episodes of me talking about it. I think the free thyroid masterclass is the best place to go. So I'm not going to go too into the weeds on these topics because they are covered in so many other areas, but just give a little compilation. So let's just talk about pregnancy for starters. I wrote an entire article about this with sources on my blog. You can go to elleruss.com/blog and you can just search pregnancy and that article will come up. So let's just talk about pregnancy. First of all, someone can be completely fine, never have a thyroid problem, and then they get pregnant and suddenly they become hyper or they become hypo. Now, I would say more often it's probably the case where they become hypo. Why is that? Because there are more demands from the fetus on the thyroid, and the thyroid could be inundated and exhausted, which makes the mother hypothyroid. So that's one thing. Now, when a person gets pregnant, right from the get-go, there might be a higher demand. So this is why it's very important during pregnancy. Well, first of all, before you get pregnant, if there's a way that you can plan your pregnancy, please do. I'll talk about that in a minute because you can have some issues that come up. So you have to look out for symptoms of hypothyroidism during pregnancy. It can happen. You can also get Hashimoto's disease during pregnancy. Not that you would get it if you otherwise wouldn't have gotten it in life, but things can be ignited that were sort of dormant and lingering and sneaking beneath the surface. And Hashimoto's is one of those things that can come up. So again, that's then extra important that during pregnancy, you are making sure you are abiding by the proper, paleo AIP or paleo diet that's eliminating gluten and things that can increase your antibodies. And it would behoove you to get those antibodies to the lowest levels possible or undetectable. That's your goal as someone with any autoimmune disorder. But with regards to Hashimoto's and pregnancy, you might need to get that in check before you get pregnant. So look at those antibodies, do your best to get them down before you get pregnant. So One of the other things is that people who are on thyroid hormone replacement already, okay, this is back to checking before you get pregnant. If you can plan your pregnancy, you want to get the thyroid ruled out. Okay. And when I say that, and when I say any of these things, I don't mean go to a doctor and let the doctor tell you it's okay or not. I mean, you need to check for yourself whether it's okay or not. You need to learn this information so that you can check that. If you are on thyroid hormone replacement, and you're about to get pregnant, you want to make sure that you're optimized. What does that mean? You want to make sure that you're not hypothyroid anymore, that you're on the right dosage and combination of thyroid hormones that are going to keep you symptom-free and doing well. Infertility and miscarriages are completely related to thyroid. Why? Because the thyroid's the master gland, and the hormone that it produces, the main biologically active thyroid hormone, T3, is responsible for the production and regulation of sex hormones. So when you get pregnant, progesterone increases immensely. All of these things happen in order for you to hold that baby in your uterus and carry it to term. So you can potentially have a miscarriage or not even be able to get pregnant. So don't save yourself years of frustration or blaming oneself because you can't get pregnant when maybe you just didn't rule out the thyroid. Maybe you need to treat hypothyroidism and get the thyroid straight first. So that's the first order of business. Again, often doctors are like, hey, your thyroid's fine. And then you move on and you go, oh, it's not my thyroid. And then you keep blaming yourself for not getting pregnant or having miscarriages. But this happened, and Kara Hahn is a great example of this. She was mistreated by an endocrinologist on T4 only medication for her hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. She had 2 miscarriages she didn't need to have. Later found out that doctor never tested her for Hashimoto's, so she didn't even know. And then not only that, had her on the wrong hormone replacement, which was T4 only, and she had to move to a T4, T3 combo, and now she's completely fine. But she was an absolute disaster. If you go to elleruss.com, click on courses, check out the Ultimate Thyroid course. Kara has a 35-minute testimonial up there about her experience with that. So, you don't need to go through that. And she thought she was being treated correctly. She was going to an endocrinologist. Okay, they're doing what they should do. I trust them. They're a doctor. And she had 2 miscarriages. Okay, so you don't need that to happen to you. Rule out the thyroid first. You don't need to go down a very disappointing path. You know what I mean? If you have the opportunity. And then if you don't have the opportunity and it's unplanned, okay, get your thyroid checked right away. Get it tested immediately. Okay, for people that are on thyroid hormone replacement, and then they're like, all right, I'm doing good. Now I want to get pregnant. Okay, first of all, you want to be optimized before you get pregnant. Okay, so you want to be unhypo, have no symptoms, feel great. But then when you get pregnant, you might have an immediate from the get-go higher demand for thyroid hormones because of the fetus. So you will need to check thyroid hormone levels like every month throughout your pregnancy. You should be checking them anyway. But if you are on thyroid hormone replacement, it might be way more often, 4 to 6 weeks, because you need to check in that these demands are being met. You might need a higher thyroid hormone replacement. Okay. And you might need it right from the get-go. So it's very important to test this and monitor it. And then also when you have the baby, then you might need to dial it back and lower whatever you might have increased. Okay. So, and what do I mean by optimization? When you're on thyroid hormone replacement, if you're on the right amounts and the dosages for you, okay, then you're not hypo. I am not hypothyroid right now, and I'm not in my daily life. Why? Because I wake up every day and I take the right amount for me of thyroid hormones. And what's right for me is not right for Betty or Joe or Jim. It's very individual. All right, so there isn't a thyroid epidemic in this world. 200 million plus people don't have this disease because doctors know what they're talking about. It's because they're uninformed on this topic using 1973 outdated protocols to treat thyroid issues. So if you're listening to this, don't take that word from a doctor as fact. Don't take anything. How do you know? If you've got a disease, don't you think it's the smartest thing in the world to learn all about it and double check the shit that the doctor's saying? Yeah, I do. Do you know how many people? It's countless. How many people that have come to me and like, well, it's not my thyroid. The doctor said the thyroid's fine. How do you know? Oh, really? Great. What did you test? Oh, I don't know. I haven't looked at it. Yeah, you don't know. You're taking their word. I'm not here today. I had no intention of becoming a thyroid expert, everybody. No intention of becoming a thyroid expert. I was forced to because no one could help me. All right. So if you're listening to this, don't take doctors' words as fact. Learn about the disease that you have. I did, and that's why I fixed myself, and that's why I'm helping fix others. Okay, it's only because I went and learned it, and I have all of that for you. freethyroidmasterclass.com, ultimate thyroid course. That's why we get second opinions, but you could keep going to endocrinologist after endocrinologist, and they might all say the same thing. So please arm yourself with knowledge. Watch my free thyroid masterclass, look at the video, look at the downloads, and you're going to start to understand how this works. And you need to understand this, particularly if you are on thyroid hormone replacement and you're getting pregnant. And, if you've been treated great up until now, maybe your doctor can handle it, but if they don't, you need to be in the know. Also, with thyroid and pregnancy, it doesn't matter if you're on T3 only. It doesn't matter if you're on T4 only. It doesn't matter if you're on a T4, T3 combination. It doesn't really matter what combination of thyroid hormones you are on, as long as you are optimized and unhypothyroid because you are optimized on the right levels for you to have zero symptoms, then you're good. Then you're good to go. And if you get pregnant, then you might need to just adjust and increase as necessary. And after the pregnancy is completed, you lower it. And you can have wonderful, successful, healthy pregnancies on thyroid hormone replacement. It is no different. So, every month during pregnancy, thyroid draw, checking symptoms and temps. But here's the thing, when you're pregnant, there's lots of other symptoms and things going on, so it's not as easy to gauge, which is why you need the blood work for thyroid. All right, what are the nuances and caveats? So, a couple things I've seen over the years, and I want everyone to hear this. No one should ever be trying to target a number on a blood test when dosing thyroid hormone medication. Okay, and let me rephrase that. So if you're taking thyroid hormone replacement, and I don't care what it is, your goal is not that you are trying to reach a certain number on a blood lab. You're not trying to target the free T3 result to be a certain number. And I think people have a little bit of a confusion here. So let me give some examples. All right. I'm just going to talk about free T3 because it is the most important test and it really does relate to how we feel. So let me just talk about that. The free T3 range in the United States is usually 2.0 to 4.0. In Canada, maybe it's 3.0 to 6.0. It doesn't matter. Normal people who don't have thyroid problems are usually in the middle of that range. So in the United States, 2.0 to 4.0, they're going to be like 3.1. That's usually classic, 3.1, 3.0, because they're going to be right in the middle. Now, there's a caveat. An athlete, super fit, lean athlete like Ben Greenfield or Mark Sisson or Brad Kern, some of these dudes that are just like beasts of, athleticism, they actually often have a lower than mid-range free T3. Their free T3 might be 2.8, even 2.7. Now, that might be concerning for me or for you or someone else, but it doesn't mean they have a thyroid problem. Again, we're not looking at the lab to say you have a thyroid problem, and we're not looking at targeting a number, dosing thyroid hormones to target a number. You don't, if you're on this journey, you won't know what your right free T3 is for you until you get there. So does this mean that Mark Sisson has a thyroid problem because his free T3 is 2.7? No, it means he's very efficient at processing T3. He needs less T3 thyroid hormone to operate than you and I do. Now, someone else, though, has come to me with a 2.7 feeling extremely hypo, very sick, and needed thyroid help, and was extremely hypothyroid. But if you have zero symptoms, like a Brad Kearns or Mark Sisson, any of these super ripped 10% body fat dudes who are low carb, pretty much, like, that's possible. So we don't always go by numbers to say someone is hypo, necessarily, and we don't dose thyroid hormones to hit a specific number. So, and I'm going to leave out anyone on T4 only right now on this discussion. What I'm about to say is really for people who are on T4, T3 combinations like natural desiccated thyroid or Synthroid and Cytomel or compounded thyroid or, etc. So, usually it's the case that when people are feeling optimized, unhypothyroid, and feel great and have no symptoms anymore on thyroid hormone replacement, their free T3 will be above the mid-range. All right, so let's review. In a range of 2.0 to 4.0 in the United States for free T3, maybe that's 3.3, 3.5. Some people have to be at 3.9. I mentioned Cara Hahn already. Go listen to her. I've been looking at her blood work for like 10 years. She is on natural desiccated thyroid. She doses it twice a day, and she's on about 4 grains worth, which is a substantial amount, because that's right for her. but that dose could kill someone else, right? So that's what's right for her. And being at 3.9 on a free T3 is right for her. She's not hyperthyroid. She's has perfect temps. She has no symptoms. She feels great. That's where she needs to be. But other people just need to be at 3.3. And their dosage of natural desiccated thyroid or T4, T3, whatever they're taking gets them there. Okay. Now, the reason I don't bring up Synthroid and T4 only in these discussions is because it's a completely different ballgame. Okay. When you are on T4 only, then yeah, your thyroid labs are going to look like normal people and your free T3 will probably, if you're doing well, be in the mid-range. So, but this different caveat, and often T4 only really does backfire on people. So that's why I usually talk about T4, T3 combinations or T3 only. Now, if you're on T3 only, man, in order to be optimized, you might have to be above the range. Maybe you need to be at 4.5 or 5, and a doctor would have a meltdown. They would be like, oh my God, you're above the range, you're hyper. What they're not accounting for is that you have no storage hormone T4, you are on T3 only. You'll have a 0 TSH, you'll have a 0 free T4, and your T3 is going to be higher than the range. These are the nuances. So we're never targeting a number. It's whatever's number is right for you. All right. Let's see. So I want to give an example of another person who's T3 efficient. And I mentioned his name, Tony Federico. We actually talked about this on a podcast. He would not mind me mentioning this. He came to me with his labs. He has no thyroid gland. They removed it surgically. Okay. So he has no thyroid gland. It's even more important that someone like this be optimized on thyroid hormone medication because they have no backup gland to give any thyroid hormones in the event of, right? So if Tony were stranded on an island, like with no thyroid hormone after a while, like he's going to be the first to die, because he has absolutely 0 thyroid gland and you cannot live without those thyroid hormones. All right. So Tony's had his thyroid removed and he's been on Armour Thyroid for several years. And he sent me his results and he said, my doctor thinks I should lower my medication. I won't get into why they said that. That's a whole nother discussion. But bottom line is that his free T3 was below the mid-range. So in a range of 2.0 to 4.0, his free T3 was like 2.8 or 2 something like that, 2.8. And I said to him, hey, Tony, you have room to grow here. If you needed to increase your free T3, you could. How do you feel though? How are your temps? Because you have room the blood test says, hey, you got room to grow if you need it. You can increase this if you want. However, how are you? He's like, I'm fucking great. I feel great. I have no issues. I feel wonderful. Temps are great. Everything's great. Great. Well, then guess what? In that situation, Tony is just fine. And by the way, he's low carb. He works out. He's one of these athlete type of guys. He's T3 efficient. It's okay that his free T3 for someone being on a natural desiccated thyroid hormone replacement, it's just fine that his free T3 is 2.8. It doesn't need to be mid-range, doesn't need to be above the range, and it doesn't need to be Kara at 3.9. Kara's operating at 3.9 on free T3 because that's what's right for her. Tony's operating just great with a 2.8 free T3. Well, a 2.8 free T3 would fuck my world up, and a lot of other people listening to this and a lot of other thyroid patients. A free T3 of 2.8 with someone being on natural desiccated thyroid as a thyroid hormone replacement program, they might feel extremely hypothyroid and need to be to 3.5. So again, back to, we're never targeting a number. It's always individual. Even in these nuances even these situations where it's a little less than the mid-range, All right. Another thing I want to talk about, a missing component, is ferritin. Okay, so ferritin is iron storage, and it's extremely important that these things are optimized, and I'll explain why. Ferritin is iron storage, and basically you can look at it as whether you're swallowing thyroid hormones every morning like me, or whether your own thyroid hormones are being pumped out at appropriate amounts, they are not going to be able to get to where they need to go. Sometimes the solution for hypothyroid symptoms like, I have brain fog, I'm tired, is just optimizing ferritin, optimizing your iron. So what does that look like? Usually the range of ferritin is 10 to 150. Okay. y- you want to be at 65, 60, 65, something like that. I mean, you could say between 50 and 100 is okay, but ideally 65. If you're at 40, you might need to do a little top off work on some iron. If you're 30 and below, you're going to need to really hit it. If you are below 30, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. It's going to be restless legs, and you're going to have this symptom. You're going to lay down, and when you lay down, your heart is thumping and pumping, and you feel it in your chest, and it feels heavy. You're aware of it. And it's a very concerning thing that happens in your brain. You go, oh my God, something's wrong with my heart. I'm having a heart attack. Shit, my heart. It's actually a low ferritin and or adrenal thing. Okay. So it wasn't until years ago when I first got hypothyroid, I treated myself on natural desiccated thyroid. Then years went by and I got a reverse T3 problem, so I went on T3 only. So I've been in all of it, people. I've run the full gamut, know all the symptoms, know all the scenarios with all of the dosing. NDT was great for me for a while, but while I was dosing NDT, I was having problems raising the dose. And the correlation with that is low iron, low ferritin. So I had to aggressively dose. I mean, I'm talking aggressive. I had a ferritin of 10 on a range of 10 to 150. I was like I passed out in like a spa waiting room. I was just a mess. I had restless legs every night. I was so exhausted. The brain fog was probably from hypo and ferritin. I had that horrible concerning pumping and thumping every time I would lay down. It wouldn't matter if it were night or the middle of the day. That is iron. And it's also the heart working extra hard because it doesn't have enough thyroid hormones. So iron is key. There have been so many people that have come to me over the years for coaching, and the answer is just ferritin. Like, again, a woman, this is disproportionately hypothyroidism affects women. If you're a guy, it can affect you too, but disproportionately it affects us. And so then you're a menstruating female throughout your life, and maybe you have a baby or this and that and the other, and your body's not holding on to iron because you're hypothyroid anyway. That's why hypothyroid people have low vitamin D, low B12, low iron. It wouldn't matter if you're eating straight up liver every day. Your body just won't hold on to the nutrients when you're hypothyroid. Again, all of these nuances and caveats as to why it won't hold on and all of that stuff is in my book, in my course, but the course being more in depth, obviously. All right. So if I hadn't started aggressively taking iron at the same time I was taking NDT, I would have never made it. Okay. Now, you don't never take them together. Okay. Ever. You don't take iron near thyroid medication because the iron can bind with it and render it less effective. So you always take it 2 to 4 hours away from a dose, but it can look like this: an hour before eating or 2 to 4 hours after eating. Okay. That's for empty stomach for taking like thyroid hormone medication. With iron, you need to take it with food and you need to take it away from the thyroid. So thyroid hormone is always empty stomach, and I'll get into that in a second. And then iron is always with food. Okay. Now, it would behoove you to take iron and vitamin C together. Vitamin C helps it absorb. The best form of iron to take is iron bisglycinate chelate or ferrous bisglycinate chelate. You can look at the back of any bottle. In the thyroid community, we love Blue Bonnet. I think Whole Foods makes their own version. The dosing and how you do it is completely different. I had to take 4 iron pills a day, very high doses, to aggressively help me as I was dosing NDT, getting out of hypothyroidism. It is the only thing that worked. So thyroid hormones can't get to where they need to go with shitty ferritin. When you're looking at a comprehensive iron test, then what you're looking for is the following. And this is all in my free thyroid guide and in my book and everywhere else. TIBC, total iron binding capacity, total iron, ferritin, and then percentage saturation. It's actually a little percentage sign, saturation. Those are the 4 main tests for a comprehensive iron panel. All right. You want to get that. So sometimes ferritin, sometimes getting some iron is all the person really needs, and that's all they needed. Okay. And that kind of caused a thyroid problem for them. I just had a male friend who actually doesn't have any thyroid issues, but he's been a pescatarian, meaning he eats fish and other things, but he doesn't eat meat. And so for 14 years, and he's a man, so he's not menstruating, and his ferritin was an absolute disaster. It was so low. And I said, you know what? You got to get on this. And he did. He talked to Dr. Forsman and he ended up taking some iron to up it. So if you are a pescatarian or a vegetarian, you've got to look at this iron panel and you have to make sure you're keeping up with B12 and iron and all this kind of stuff, male or female. It just can really fuck up a thyroid situation. All right. So sometimes hypothyroid symptoms are actually low iron, low ferritin. All right. let's talk about how you naturally solve it really quick. So what's a quick protocol for like, shit, I do have a thyroid problem, but I want to see if I can fix it naturally first before going on thyroid hormone replacement, as you should. What do I do? Should I take iodine? Should I take this? Should I take that? Well, first of all, you always talk with your doctor. I'm not a doctor. None of this is meant to be medical support. But here's the thing. You can get a good thyroid support formula. Pure Encapsulations makes a great thyroid support formula. You could, usually it has things like tyrosine, so a little bit of natural iodine, ashwagandha for adrenals, selenium. It has all these supportive nutrients for thyroid health. Okay, so you could do that. You could get a great multivitamin that also has a component for the methylated B12 if you have an MTHFR mutation. So I take Mitocore multi. There's some other good ones as well. Pure Encapsulations makes a great multivitamin called One, and that's just one a day. It also has a good amount of the methyl B12 folate. All right. The other thing too is you adopt a paleo diet. Why is that? Well, it eliminates all the inflammatory pro Hashimoto's pro autoimmune shit like grains and gluten, dairy, beans and legumes. But grains, gluten in particular, being the thing we know is awful for autoimmune disorders. So it eliminates all of that. So I would just like go paleo, get a good thyroid support formula, maybe get a good multivitamin, maybe on top of the multivitamin, take an extra D3K2 combination. And just hit that regimen. You don't even have to work out, but just clean out the food, get some supportive nutrients in there, and then like get your thyroid tested again in 8 or 12 weeks and see did anything change. Because I've seen people who also like after pregnancy became hypothyroid. So they delivered the baby, then suddenly they were hypothyroid and they weren't before. And all they needed to do was actually clean up their diet, get some nutrients, and they were totally fine. So it's absolutely worthwhile attempting this. You don't go straight to thyroid hormone replacement. I mean, you really shouldn't, unless you've exhausted all of these things. And also, if you've spent 10 years trying to do natural stuff, it's time to stop. That's too long to be hypothyroid. Hypothyroidism is a disease state. You do not want to stay in that fucker for very long. Many problems are going to show up. You're going to live a terrible life. So, but if it's like just happened to you, you haven't been suffering for very long, yes, do all of the things to turn it around naturally. All right. So in my book, I talk about how I used to do my T3 dosing sublingually. And what do I mean by that? Sublingually, under the tongue, meaning I would chew up the T3 pill in my mouth and I would just put that stuff under my tongue and let it soak into my bloodstream. I don't really suggest doing any sublingual dosing unless you have to. And let me explain the nuances to this. So sometimes I take thyroid hormone medication every day. Sometimes I have an afternoon dose that I take. And so sometimes like if I screw up and I already ate, and then I'm like, because, you really should take thyroid hormones on an empty stomach. I'll be like, should I miss that dose? I don't know if I want to wait. And then I can just chew it up and put it under my tongue because I know that I can do that with the liothyronine sodium that I get from the store. You can't do sublingual with compounded medication that comes compounded for you in a capsule. You can't open the capsule and put it sublingually. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do any sublingual dosing with T4 only medication. So if you have NDT or you have T3 only, you could do sublingual dosing, but really it should be reserved for people that are going through like serious Crohn's, colitis, SIBO, like major gut issues. Not necessarily just general shitty candida, whatever gut issues that you would have anyway that you're trying to deal with, but like the serious ones. That might be an argument for taking one or more doses sublingually. You know what I mean? And you look, like people, I know someone on Carrie Forrest, go to the Ultimate Thyroid course on my website, and you'll hear her success story. She's a thyroid cancer survivor. She takes T4 and T3 in the morning and then T3 the rest of the day in a couple of doses. But her second dose, she takes sublingually because it's too close to lunch. And so that's what she does. And that works for her. So you can do this, but I would say that I would always try swallowing first, unless you have serious Crohn's, colitis, SIBO, and all that kind of stuff. And even then, so once you start to fix that, you can go back to swallowing it. So I would do that. All right, let's see what else. Yeah, so empty stomach is for thyroid dosing is 1 hour before eating or 2 hours after eating. Here's another thing. A lot of people, when they have to multi-dose, so if you're on T4 only, you should probably be just taking that once a day in the morning. People really don't multi-dose T4. It's not necessary. It's just the storage hormone. So it doesn't really matter. However, If you're doing T4, T3, sometimes multi-dosing is optimal for the patient, meaning, morning and then afternoon dosing. Okay. If you're on T3 only, you might be dosing 3 to 5 times a day. Okay. So, in this subject of the dosing, no matter what it is that you're on, when you're starting this, you forget, you're not used to the timing of these things. There is no excuse to miss this. Everybody has a smartphone. Make an alarm every single damn day for 2 p.m. If that's when your second dose is at, then make that alarm. I used to have, when I dosed 4 times a day for T3 only back in the day, I would make alarms for myself until I got used to it. Now I don't make alarms for myself because I'm so used to, it's almost like subconsciously, it's like when you wake up at the same time and your body wakes up naturally at that time without the alarm clock. It's almost like I've trained myself. I happen to look at the clock and realize that it's usually around the time for my second dose. Either way, there's a way to avoid this. And I suggest being as consistent as possible about the timings of your doses if you're not better yet. It's not going to ruin my day if I miss a second dose or I miss the first dose or I miss an entire day of dose. I mean, I might feel it a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's not setting me back because I'm already better, right? So if you're not better yet, be religious about making sure you're taking these doses. And so, that means bringing it with you, having a pill case. Maybe you need to get the little keychain pill case little container thing. And you always throw one in there at the beginning of the day because at 2 p.m., I have to do that all the time. If I'm going somewhere in the afternoon or anywhere, I've got to take my T3 with me. All right, so you'll get used to it by making alarms. All right, so the other thing is, let's talk about cortisol. This is a really in-depth discussion on adrenals, but hypothyroid patients, when they're hypothyroid, again, not me, right? Like I'm still considered technically a hypothyroid patient. I'd have to write it down on a medical survey going into a new doctor. I'd have to say I have hypothyroidism, but it's treated. I feel great. I'm unhypo because I take the right amount of thyroid hormones, right? So, the adrenals usually get exhausted when you are hypothyroid and you're not on the right levels of T3, and they get overtaxed and then they kind of peter out. And so you may not have enough cortisol, or you may be getting too much cortisol at different times that are not right. So adrenals and cortisol levels always get screwed up. However, when you go down this journey, they get solved together because then the T3 finally helps the adrenals produce what it needs and things start to smooth out. But let's talk about cortisol. This is too much of an in-depth discussion here. It'll probably take hours, but let me sum a few things up. All right. If you don't have enough cortisol, then T3 does a lousy job of getting into your cells, and it could go high falsely, which some people call pooling, which means it might look high, but it's not really high. So that could happen. Pooling, meaning gathering in the blood and not really getting into the cells, driving around the office building and never punching into work. Okay, so that's one thing. Let's talk about menopause, perimenopause. Okay, so more estrogen naturally binds with some thyroid hormones, so you might need higher dose before perimenopause or true menopause versus after. Okay, because as estrogen drops, you might need a little less thyroid hormone replacement. But then what about the people that are taking bioidentical hormone replacement, like estrogen, testosterone, progesterone? Well, in that case, it might just equal out where you were before. You might not need less thyroid hormones after menopause, but again, this time of life is where you need to check and go, hold on a minute. And not only that, you need to check and go, am I going hypo in menopause? There's so many changes going on in the body here. And so this is the time of life to go. Let me check my thyroid. Even if I never had a thyroid problem, let's check it. All right. The other caveat is sometimes people need more thyroid hormone in winter and a little less in summer. So those are some of the adjustments sometimes people make. And then I want to go over something that happens all of the time. It happens so much that even when I give the warning I'm about to give, it still happens. And I'm probably just going to repeat it for the rest of my life. So one of the biggest mistakes doctors and patients make is that they'll give someone a entry-level dose of thyroid hormone replacement. Like, oh, this patient's hypothyroid. Let's put them on thyroid hormone replacement. And then they're like, here you go. Come back in 6 months. Wrong. When you start thyroid hormone replacement, you need to get your blood tested every 3 weeks. Oh yeah, you heard me. Every 3 fucking weeks. If you're a doctor listening to this, let me tell you why. 3 weeks is enough time to see what the T4 in whatever dose it is, whether it's T4 only, whether it's T4, T3 combination, whether it's natural desiccated thyroid that has T4, T3 in it, doesn't matter. If it's T4, T3 combo or any kind of thyroid hormone medication, 3 weeks is enough time to let that T4 build, store, and convert. We can actually get accurate results at 3 weeks. Why would you not want to wait longer than that? I'll tell you why. When you start introducing exogenous hormones into the body, it's shutting down its own natural production. And then here's what happens. Doctor goes, oh, you're hypothyroid. Here's a dose. Come back in 6 months. Well, in that 6 months, they're like, oh my God, I feel even worse. I feel even more hypo than I did before. This is terrible. This is not working. I want to just chuck it. I hate it. Yeah, it's because you didn't do it right, okay? You must move up in a timely manner to your optimal dose. You can fix an entire fucking thyroid problem in 3 months. I see it happen all the time. It can be quick. It's happening right now with someone that I worked with, a friend of a friend, came to me, and they literally, they've been doing it aggressively, like getting tested every 3 weeks. Boom. Why do you do this? You get tested every 3 weeks. Then it takes about a week or 10 days for those labs to come back because reverse T3 test takes longer than some of the others. Now you're at a month. You need to move up so you don't drip back. So if this happens to you and you're like, wow, I was feeling great for the first 3 weeks of thyroid hormone replacement. I was like, oh my God, this is a miracle. And now all of a sudden I'm feeling shitty. Yeah, you need to increase because you need to move up. You need to get your optimal dose. You're not optimized yet. So that is the number one mistake that doctors and patients make. And it's just really dumb. Why prolong this suffering? Why are you prolonging your body being hypothyroid, which is such a horrible disease state? Move up in a timely manner to your personal optimal dose. So then after 3 weeks, like, how you doing? How are temps? How are the labs? How do you feel? Right? If you feel great, maybe stay there for a while. If you don't and things are still there and you look at labs, I mean, these are the nuances with individual people. And sometimes it takes people, sometimes it's just the first dose. Sometimes the entry-level dose is the optimization dose for that person. It's rare, but it happens. I know a 6'3" dude who's 56 years old who takes 1 grain of thyroid hormone every day, meaning it's a 160 milligram pill of natural desiccated thyroid. He's doing great. That's enough for him. Then we have Kara Hahn, who I mentioned earlier. She has to take 4 grains a day, 2 60 milligram pills in the morning, 2 60 milligram pills in the afternoon, because that's right for her. Her free T3 for her to feel right is at 3.9. For the other guy I just mentioned, who's, 57 and 6'3", who takes 1 60 milligram dose, and that's fine for him. His free T3 is great. And for him at about 3.2. It's all individual, but you must move up in a timely manner. The other biggest mistake that people make, you never, ever, you never take your thyroid hormone before a blood test, and you always get tested in the morning fasting. You can drink water, you can drink black coffee, you can drink black tea. That's fine. Don't take medications, supplements, whatever. Get tested within 2 hours of waking up, whenever you wake up. So my fellow podcaster, Melanie Avalon, who has helped with her thyroid, and we've talked about this before, I've been on her show. She's a night owl. Like, she doesn't wake up till 11 in the morning. I mean, she's up, she's eating dinner at midnight. She loves that schedule for her. That's fine. So that means for her, when she wants to get tested for her thyroid, she wakes up and maybe it's 11 and then she's getting tested at 1, but she's not eating or doing anything before then. Don't work out. Don't do anything. Just hang out. Just hang out and do nothing. Okay. That's what you do before you get a test. Do not get tested after you eat. Do not get tested in the afternoon. Why don't you take your thyroid hormone before the test? This is not as applicable for people on T4 only medication, but it is mostly applicable for people on any T4, T3, or T3 only. This happened last week. Somebody, a friend of a friend, the person I was telling you about, who's getting optimized pretty quickly. But what happened initially is she took thyroid hormone replacement. Then she got tested. Great. Increased the thyroid hormone replacement. Then the next test that she got, she forgot to not take the thyroid hormone beforehand. She sent me her labs and I said, oh my God, there is no doubt in my mind you swallowed your thyroid hormones before this test. Her free T3 was 6. Her free T4 was 1.5. That would be a red flag. You can learn all about that in the thyroid course, a little bit of it in my book. That's a red flag. Because that range is about 0.8 to 1.8. It should never be above 1.4. It would be a red flag for a reverse T3 issue. But I said to her, she goes, "Oh my God, I did. You're right. I think getting so used to taking this every morning, you get so used to waking up and taking your thyroid hormone. If you know a thyroid blood test is coming up, put a damn Post-it note on the bottle. Don't take it. Take it with you. You take it with you to the test. You can swallow it in the car, in the parking lot, after the needle is out of your arm. It's okay. You are hours late that day with your dose. Don't take it. Why? Because the free T3 test is going to be something like crazy, like I just told you, like 6.0, because free T3 peaks within 2 hours of taking it. So you just swallowed it. Now you go into the lab 2 hours later and boom, there your free T3 is like horrific, according to the doctor. They're like, oh my God. But I knew when I looked at it, I thought, oh, she just took her medication before. So I said, sorry, you're going to have to get tested again now because you blew that blood test, right? Again, don't waste blood tests. Don't waste getting your arm pricked if you don't have to, right? So she goes back in and then the results were, there you go. They were completely normal. They were like, this is perfect. This is what it should look like for someone who's optimized on thyroid hormone replacement and DT, T4, T3 combo. So never, ever take it before the test. Don't take it after eating. Again, always within 2 hours of waking up. For most people, that's 9 or 9:30 a.m. Here's another thing regarding labs. If you go to like LabCorp, Quest Diagnostics, any of these places, and you're looking online for appointments, and you're like, my God, there's no early morning appointments for weeks and weeks and weeks. Don't buy it. Show up. Show up to that lab 15 minutes before the lab even opens. You will get in there. They'll test your blood. Like when someone makes like a LabCorp lab appointment and then they decide to blow it off, do you think they go on there and cancel that shit? They don't. They don't. I've done this all the time. So if you're like, oh my God, I can't, all these labs are booked up. I can't get a blood test for 4 weeks. Nope. Just get there. Half an hour, 15 minutes before the lab even opens, wait your turn. You will get in. They will take you. Trust me on this. All right. Here's another one. So we talked about a falsely elevated result. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, and let's just talk about like free T3, free T4. What does the free mean? That means what's free, unbound, and available, not what you just sent coursing through your veins because you swallowed it 2 hours before the test. This happens all the time. I'm telling you, really check yourself, okay? The other things too, and this is the last one. This is a really big mistake. And this also happens after I give 1,000 warnings. And this is why I'm giving it here again. So you have to check the lab slip of your doctor before you go in to get the blood test. So this is what happens. You say to your doctor, hey, I'd like to get these things tested. Like you just looked at my free thyroid guide and you were like, oh shit, I need to get these tests done. My doctor never did this. And you go, hi, can I get these tests? And they go, yeah, sure. You go to the lab, you get the results back and you're like, wait, where's the free reverse T3? Oh shit, they only tested total T4, not free T4. Wait, what's T3 uptake? Why didn't they test free T3? Hey, did you check their fucking work? Why did you believe them? Why did you believe them? Because you think this is how normal life works. You go, hey, can you do that for me? And someone goes, yeah. And then they do it, right? They go, yeah. But then they look at your list and they go, Sally doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. I'm not testing reverse T3. They don't need that. And they don't even call you to go, hey, I'm arguing with you on this. I don't want to test the reverse T3 or I'm not going to do that. They don't even let you know. So they won't put it on the test. You go in and then you're like crying because you're like, I asked them. They said, yeah. Yeah, they don't fucking care. They'll just lie and not give a shit. They think they're better than you. They think they know more than you. They have an MD. So if you're requesting something that they're not familiar with and they just look, they won't even, it's so rude, right? Like you'd think they'd at least kind of email or call you back and go, hey, I see this list you gave me, but I don't think you need these, or I'm not willing to test this, or they don't even give you a chance to make your case. So stop getting chumped by these fucking doctors that are just, this happens, by the way, with any test. You could say, hi, here's a list of STD tests I'd like to get tested because I'm considering going back in the dating pool again. And they'll be like, yeah. And then they only test 3 of them because they feel like, well, you don't need that unless you have symptoms. You don't need that unless. But I asked you for this list and you said yes. Why the fuck did you lie to me and then have me go into the lab? So this is on you, everybody. Check your lab slip. Ask the phlebotomist, hi, are these things on here? I want to make sure before you put that needle in my arm. If it's not, you don't waste the blood draw. I can't tell you how many people have cried to me over the years because they got to go back in now And then it feels extra patronizing and gaslighting because they're like, fuck the doctor nurse. Why wouldn't they? I asked them, but they said they would. But then, and then it's not. Now you got to go get your fucking arm pricked again with a needle. I'm sorry. I'm not available for blood tests. Like, I hate getting my needle tapped, like my veins tapped with a needle. I mean, now they got to go back in there. So please check your doctor's work. They will not look at your list. Don't trust that they're going to take the test you requested. And don't trust that if they have an argument with it, they're going to let you know beforehand. They won't. You'll go to the lab and then the test won't be there. This happens all the time for years and years and years. I've been doing this for over a decade. It's nonstop, you guys. So these are really important things to know. And again, if you have the Ultimate Thyroid course is probably the best thing you can do to solve your problem. It's less than a functional medicine doctor appointment. It's there for you forever. And it is what is really going to teach you everything that I know. I feel completely confident in not only helping everyone else with their thyroid problem, but my thyroid problem. Like, I'm completely confident because I learned it myself. And that's why my course is the most comprehensive on the planet. And it's 30 hours long because I'm teaching you everything that you need to know. And if you've heard me, if this is the first time you're hearing me, but if you know me in general, you know that I do explain things in a way that people can understand because I'm not a scientist who gets it. I had to learn it in this way. And also I've had to teach others who are also like, we're all dum-dums about medicine and biology because it's not our wheelhouse. I've had to teach them and you're able to understand it. You can understand it like me. You really can. All right. I hope this has been helpful. Listen, if you have any questions, reach out. Also, I am most active on Instagram. You can always DM me there. Of course, I'm on all the social media platforms. Also, I started finally doing a blog of health and mindset articles in this year, 2023. I had been sending out some little articles and things to my email list, but now I'm doing an official blog. I'm going to be publishing 2 articles a week, one on health, one on mindset. You can go to elleruss.com/blog to check those out. And if you want to be alerted to that, you can just subscribe to my newsletter. I only email people once a week. I never sell the list. I never spam you. And that email once a week will be like, hi, here are these blog posts if you want to check them out. And then also here are the other things going on, whether it's a special offer or a colleague of mine is running a great program that I promote for them. But I never spam anyone and don't email more than once a week. So you can go to elleruss.com and click on the subscribe to my newsletter button. And I also have wonderful guides in my free stuff area. And for those of you who might have already downloaded the paleo guide that I have in there, I just literally the other day completely revamped it. It now has keto, carnivore, low histamine, low FODMAP. It goes through all of the different healing diets, gives you a synopsis of the macros of the food list involved. It has a wonderful breakdown of like some meal plans and exercise regimens. So that free paleo guide is a little bit more in depth right now with all the different healing diets in there. And I just want to say this. I don't care how much you're suffering right now. Don't you dare get discouraged. This is fixable. Every thyroid problem is fixable. And you might be like, but yeah, Elle, I've been seeing 1,000 doctors for like 10 years. I'm still struggling. It's just because you haven't educated yourself. That's all. It's okay. It's not blaming you, but you got to get the shit straight like me. I had to learn it. You have to learn it. That's why I'm here teaching everybody about it, because once you know it inherently, you've got a disease. You got to figure this out. You're going to be able to fix it. You know, it becomes second nature. Especially when you learn it from me, I do the necessary repetition of the things that are necessary to drill into your head how this works. So you can go to freethyroidmasterclass.com, watch my free thyroid masterclass video, and check out the Ultimate Thyroid course. The page in and of itself is amazing, has great testimonials on it. You can also listen to a 15-minute clip from the course of Dr. Forsman on the Ultimate Thyroid course webpage. So, all right, everyone. I hope this was helpful. Thanks so much for listening. I love all of your feedback. I'm just so grateful to you. And I'm going to continue to put it out there and help everybody. If you have any questions, please reach out. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. Hey, listeners. You know, over the years, a ton of companies have approached me to collaborate, but I will only promote companies whose products I believe in and that I actually use and consume on a regular basis. So let me tell you about some of my favorite companies that I can offer you discounts for. Rep Provisions, an amazing company doing incredible things for our planet, topsoil, and animals with regenerative agriculture. And it's my #1 source for quality pasture-raised meat and chicken. Visit repprovisions.com and use code L15 for 15% off. I'm also obsessed with a company called Carnivore Crisps. They make a lean, all-natural, and delicious alternative to conventional snacking, made with just real meat and real salt. Totally addictive, and my favorite ones are the beef brisket and the ribeye. Visit carnivorecrisps.com and use code PALEO10 for 10% off. I also love and regularly use Paleo Valley products. They make amazing supplements and delicious paleo products. I use the superfood greens powder, grass-fed beef sticks, the organ complex, and their bone broth bars. I love the lemon and apple. I also use their essential C complex and more. Visit paleovalley.com/promos/Elle Russ for 15% off. I also love Primal Kitchen. They make delicious paleo-approved, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and no refined sugar products, and I use them daily, from their collagen powders and sauces and marinades to their avocado and olive oil. So good, so healthy. Visit primalkitchen.com and use code L10 for 10% off. I also love paleo powder and use it almost on everything I cook. They make incredible seasoning blends, and they also have these incredible grain-free coatings that feel just like crispy breadings that you would have had prior to knowing that there's another way. So visit paleopowder.com and use code L15 for 15% off.